Perfectionism, pressure, and the myth of good enough. Do you ever feel like no matter what you do, it's never enough? So today we're going to dive into perfectionism, how it shows up in food, emotions, and everyday life, and how we've all finally learned how to step off that hamster wheel. Hello, and welcome back to Not Here to Fix You, the podcast where we call out lies and talk about topics like healing, emotions, food, and everything in between. I'm your co host, Amanda, a food freedom and guilt recovery coach, and I help you to eat with more freedom, less shame and guilt. And with me today is my other co host and also our editor, Tasiyah. Is back for another episode. So, Laziena, go ahead and make the introduction.
Yeah. Well, I'm Laziena, and I am your repair language guide. I help people return to love after conflict, and that journey was inspired by this young lady right here. Unfortunately, it came with a lot of trauma, but um, but the repair in it has been beautiful. She is my oldest daughter, and we co-host Breaking the Cycle podcast, which is also a podcast where we talk about our journey and we have guests who talk about their journey, how we're doing it differently, how we're choosing to be consciously choosing our destiny. So I really appreciate this. Yeah, let's dive into the appreciation of perfectionism and pressure. And we're not here to fix you. We're here to feel with you and let you know that this is all a beautiful part of the human journey and we get to have the conversations about it. I think for me, when it comes to perfectionism and the pressure to be good enough, all of it stemmed from childhood. Good. And I know in a lot of households, the pressure to have good grades or just performing what is something that we've lived through and we've both experienced on both ends of it. And then just in general relationships and in conversation, if when we're talking to someone, we need them to hear what we are saying so that they can see that we are good enough and look at all of the things that we're doing. And I think that takes away from being an authentic, wholesome, meaningful connection with others because we're not listening from those lens anymore. We're listening from the lens of compassion and love and togetherness. So yeah, we can definitely continue that conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. How do you think perfectionism showed up for you?
Perfectionism took over my entire life. Oh my gosh, down to school, down to my relationships, down to how emotionally present I am. I mean, in school, I had to be the top of the class. I had to and it wasn't necessarily I think as a kid, it was always pushed to get all A's, but
Mm-hmm.
it wasn't necessarily to be the top of the class for me. It was just to make sure that I was okay in school. Ultimately, I used school as a coping mechanism. It was, if I wasn't nose deep in homework, I had to be doing something that was going to be at some type of perfectionist level. And I mean, even to now, how I am at work, I always have to make sure I'm the best at what I do, that it's the best for my client that I have, or for editing. I am the most nitpickiest person. I will sit there for hours to make sure that every video goes through fine. If I re-listen to every episode, I look for the pauses, I look for everything that people don't really pinpoint, but to me I would pinpoint down to the artwork that I use, down to how I look, how I dress. It's a lot that still clouds my brain as far as perfectionism.
I grew up believing that my father didn't want me. And so that limiting belief just followed me throughout my life, especially in the workplace. I noticed it more because I was performing so that I can earn their approval. I can be, oh yeah, this is you are good enough now, to get that validation of being good enough. And it showed up in my parenting to be perfect, which was the facade of having it all together and without any vulnerability or authenticity. It was whatever people saw.
I don't know. How does it look for you, Amanda?
Same. I mean, what you shared that it took over your entire life, like same. And I think all three of us are Indian, grew up in Indian families, so that perfectionism started from the get-go, I think,
Yeah,
at least
yeah, we
for
were
most
born in
Indians.
it.
Yeah.
It's like Indian culture is very achievement based. So from
Yeah.
the minute you're I want to say, aware enough when you're in school, it's already like the pressure is on. You need to get straight A's, like Tasiyah said, you need to be a certain way. And those messages come from our parents who've also inherited it from their parents, and it's just a whole cycle. But for me, it's so strange because one of the things I was doing with Laziena was inner child work, and I had to go back and look into my childhood and how the things that happened to me, how that's played a role in my adult life. And I happened to stumble across my old report cards from school. Okay, I'm talking like junior KG and first standard. It's like, it's crazy. So I skimmed through those because I was like, well, I don't really remember what kind of a student I was. And I know I wasn't top of the class. But then again, I also grew up in India and there are a lot of smart people out here. So it was really hard to be top of the class.
Yeah.
Um, I skimmed through those and I was like, every report the teachers would write like, she did good. Like there's a section where apart from your grades, you have teachers' remarks. So they would write, oh, you done so well, Amanda, in this, this, this. But there was always a
There's
but
always
at the
a
end of
but.
that
Yeah.
statement. Yeah. And then like you could put in more effort in this and that. And after I read all that, I was like, oh, it makes sense because every time I got a compliment like you did good, there was always a but at the end, which finally didn't make me feel like I did good enough. Because if you're gonna say I did good, let's just stop there. Like, why do you need to say you could have put in more effort? It sounds like I wasn't good
It's a
enough.
backhanded compliment in a way.
Yeah, and I don't think they saw it that way because I think we have a lot more awareness now and we are
Yeah.
very I think the three of us, at least, I would say, are very intentional with like our language and our words. I know that from our relationship with each other, that we are very careful with how we use language and words when we talk to other people.
Mhm.
But I think back then, this was just a way of getting people to like perform and achieve, like you said. So growing up with this, I realized that my worth, at least that time, I felt it only came from achievement. So if I was achieving and getting things right and it had to be perfect, then I would finally be good enough. And in my little brain, when I was young, I kind of made this out to be that if I did everything right, that means I would be loved. And that's not to say I grew up in a unloving household. It's just that I derived my worth from perfectionism. Because if I was perfect, it means, now I'm worthy of love. So that ended up in me trying to fix people's problems, trying to heal people I had no business trying to do anything for. And I think all that time I realized I was just striving to be perfect and get everything right and get people to like, love me, but in the way that I perceived, not in the
Yeah.
way that they actually felt about me. And that was also my own perception and reflection, not necessarily how they felt. But yeah, like Tasiyah said, it takes over your entire life because I can't. She shared how she can't get out, like she has to go to every episode. And I remember when I started out putting content on, I would be like, oh, is the video perfect? And I don't know how many takes I did to get one video right, but it was so frustrating to
Yeah.
the point where I was like, I can't believe I am going to be able to do this. And now that
Mhm.
was like 2 years ago. And looking back, it's so strange because now I'm sitting here with you guys on camera and I'm not even thinking of how is this episode going to look. I'm just sharing my experience and it's
Yeah.
become so natural now. But also, I think Laziena, I think when I met Laziena, I know she is, so from my perspective, she's a perfectionist with something,
Yeah.
but she's
Yes.
also more free flowing. Like
Yeah.
from the
I've
three of
I've
us,
learned to be complete.
no, I think when we first started our coaching, like I want to share this because it really helped me. So I was very conscious of how I would show up on our call. Like I mean, I wasn't like dressing to the nines, but I always wanted to make sure like I was looking neat and presentable and my hair
Right.
was always like in place. But for those who don't know, we live in two different countries, so we have like a time zone difference. So when we would get on our calls, we started off in a coaching relationship. It would be late evening for me and be like early morning for her. So in the initial months, we were figuring out the time, and then there were days where she would get up 10 minutes before the call and jump on. And then like Laziena would be like, "Hey, I'm sorry, I'm not like, all good and everything." And she would literally show up with like bed hair and like, big butt hair as I call it, because she had like that whole thing going for her. And I was like, "Oh my God, I'm so jealous. She can like pull off a mohawk and here I'm trying and it's not happening." But I realized I found that I like that about you. And I was like, oh, I don't know why I can't do it the same way. You know what I mean? Like, I was like, you know what, Amanda, today I'm not going to come. I'm just going to show up on the call. And I was like, no, no, I can't do that. I have to look like, presentable. That was always the word I needed to use. But I think spending that time with you coaching, it got me also a little more flexible. I feel like Laziena being flexible also kind of put me a bit at ease. And then I think that also was one of the reasons I felt safe and comfortable with her as a coach, because I didn't feel like I needed to perform anymore. Like she would just like allow me to be however I was. And I think eventually there were times when I was like, I'm so tired, girl. I'm just gonna like sit in this chair, don't mind me. I'm like having my legs up here, but I'm listening to you. I'm present and aware.
Yeah.
But like of the three of us, I know she's more freewheeling, because Tasiyah and I have talked about this, about how we are so fixed on how everything has to be perfect. But like Lazina's like, yeah, it's fine. It's okay. It's all right. So
I think it's funny
yeah,
though too, because like you're the one who taught me like that it's okay to be imperfect. And it's funny because you're the person who taught me that I have to be perfect. So it's like, I don't know, I think like my inner teenager's like, what are we doing now? And like
What are we doing now? This is where we're at now. Okay. Move along.
so it's always like, as far as like I know where my perfectionism comes from, right?
Mhm.
And then like I'll see you doing like your cute little videos
Yeah.
online, and then we'll be in the car and she's recording a TikTok and I'm over here like I can literally get to watch my mom overcome like her perfectionism and being like, or like you'll sit like everybody who's a content creator, you are gonna have the same video that you've done at least 14,000 times to get it the right way that you want it to be. And it's like watching you go through your phase of like, I can't get it the right way. To now it's like, I did my little video. And when you were first starting, you had to have me approve.
Yes, I would send her
She would send me the videos. She's like, does this look fine enough? And I'm like, just be yourself. Like, you don't need my approval for anything. And now whenever I need to post something that's like an actual important post, I'm like, is this okay? Please, please to give me constructive feedback. But like
yeah,
realistically, we just get to be ourselves and just like go forward. Like our imperfectionism is what makes us perfect. And like,
Yeah, I
yeah.
think, I mean,
yeah,
Amanda, you also, I'm giving you credit because I remember at the beginning of the year, like you always told me, just pick up the, make videos, right? And I was so resistant to it. And my first video, you commented, Laziena picked up the mic, because I was always, like, no, I'm, judging it or whatever the case is. So, that helped me step more into my power. And I appreciate that, Tasiyah was there for me when I, like proofread this, tell me how it sounds, I needed the validation, like a baby
yeah,
step, holding my hand as I
yeah,
was doing it. And I also, there was a time, like I think the beginning of this year is when I really just was like, I bucket to whatever happens, happens, I really stepped into just owning me and not worrying about the perfections. I'm the type of person is if I have an idea, I want to take action on it right away because if I wait, it's going to become the back burner. So for me, when it came to this podcast, we're having beautiful conversations. Let's just at least freaking record. Like, record. We'll deal with the aftermath later. So we can
yeah,
repurpose things. Like we can like decide, you know what? February 10th, which is my birthday, is when we are gonna start like every Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, podcasts are going out every, and it be what we're doing right now, right? I don't think it has to be perfect. I think people are not looking for perfection. They're looking for relatability and authenticity. Nobody's perfect, and that's the beauty of us all. I think my ASEAN said that our relationship, the beautiful thing about our relationship is that it's not perfect. And
yeah,
that's where like there's no perfect mother, there's no perfect father. We are all going to experience something. It was like sometimes I say I wasn't always a good mom. And when I say that, people immediately are ready to defend me. Like, no, you're a good mom. I understand that I'm not shaming myself. I wasn't the present, emotionally present mom. And emotional presence is what my children needed. And I didn't know the
Mm.
importance of that. So recognizing that now is saying, wow, I instilled a lot of perfectionism in my children, and that showed up in me holding myself in judgment and in that not good enough, needing to please people, needing to show up different. Like,
Yeah.
Tasiyah might have come to me with something important, and because it's a I need to be perfect about this and I'm doing a good job as a parent, I would feel attacked by what she's sharing, and then I would start listing all of the ways that I'm a good mom. And that
Yeah.
now dismissed her feelings, didn't create connection between us. She did not feel safe to come to me with anything anymore. And that affected our relationship. It affected the safety of our relationship. So when I say I wasn't a good mom, it can come off as not good enough. It can come off as like I needed to also be perfect on the other side. But it's really taking a look and seeing we are not going to be perfect at all. There's no perfect human being. And we just have to believe in ourselves and just go with it and do what's
Yeah.
in our heart, do it from that place of belief. And I think it's just go with the flow. I mean,
Yeah.
I use filters on my phone and things like that. Like right now, I think this Zoom is set up to like smooth out my face and I have makeup on and stuff like that. But I have no problem like getting on a
Mm.
call with my hair a big old mess in the morning. Like you see me, Amanda, I'm like, you know, and people would say, oh,
Yeah.
well, you have to show up professional, you have to, and I don't disagree with that. Of course, you want to be professional,
Yeah.
but that's for the
Yeah.
algorithm. The human experience does want to see themselves. I want to see myself in other people.
Yeah.
I want people to feel comfortable with me. I want to share my silliness, my goof up, my mess up, my shame, my regrets, my remorse. Because to me, that's the perfection. That's what's really perfect there. It's like we are all experiencing life and it's just a journey. So enjoy it as much as possible because being locked in emotionally and our nervous system being locked into needing to prove ourselves, that doesn't do nothing for any of us. We just end up getting stuck and then we're judging ourselves the whole time. And then
And
our content is
it's
not authentic.
Yeah, and it's so strange because even it's actually funny because you're right, right? What you said about showing up, because I do think that part of that message of me wanting to show up perfectly did come from me always trying to be perfect. But I do remember there was a client I had before you, and when I asked her for feedback on coaching, she didn't have anything negative to say about coaching. She was like, I really love the coaching, but if you want feedback, I would say just come on the call and dress more professionally. And I was like, okay, but I didn't want to work for corporate, so I don't understand what she meant by that. But I think that was in my mind when I got on calls with you. So I never dressed up, but I always
Yeah.
felt like I needed to look a certain way.
Yeah.
And I think you actually showed me that you can actually show up that way. And because I didn't care how you showed up, right, on the call. I didn't expect you to have a certain look or look like, a blazer or whatever. It was the value that you brought to it that you enriched my life with and that I took from our sessions. It wasn't like, oh, I need Laziena to looking a certain way wasn't gonna do anything for me. This was not a date. I was
Mhm.
here for like, actual knowledge and
Yeah.
steps that I could implement in my life to get me where I wanted to. Your imperfectionism kind of showed me that it's okay for me to be imperfect. And it's funny because I think even with Tasiyah and you, I think for me, the reason we became like really good friends and have such a close bond is because we share our vulnerabilities with each other. And I don't love you guys because you're perfect. I love you for like the parts of you that are like, I want to say broken, but it's not broken. It's just like the messy parts of you. That's what
Yeah.
like drew me in and made me want to have that connection with you all. And it's funny because humans always like we think we want perfection, but I've
Mhm.
always like bonded with people based on their imperfections or these vulnerabilities that they share. And I think that's what really makes the human experience so much more enriching. But I don't know why we fool ourselves into feeling we need to be
Yeah.
like, good, perfect in every area of our life and good enough. And then we will have people who love us because that's kind of a lie. But yeah, and I have had, I think we all have gone through this, even with food, like, especially Laziena and like even Tasiyah shared I mean, in our conversations about how we've gone through different phases where we're not eating healthy and but we're trying our best, right? It's not going to look perfect. Even though I coach Laziena and I've coached her in the past and I coach other people, I'm not perfect in my food habits either. So I always tell people, like, I'm not perfect. Yes, I do know more than you, and that's why I'm also in this space. I'm not doing it right every single day. Like there are going to be
Yeah.
times when I mess up because I'm not aware, I'm not mindful, I'm stressed out. So that shows up in food, like emotions. Like Lazina's really great at that, but I think there are times even she's like not done it correctly. And
No, at all. Yeah.
yeah, it's all of us. Like I think we all mess up, but we just don't like to talk about it.
That's
Share,
another
share.
part of the profession thing is like we share how we've overcome something, but
Yeah.
we don't share when we were crying for 4 hours last night while journaling, or like, when we felt so alone, or like, what our heartbreak felt like. We don't share the raw, and because the raw was taught to be and not be perfect. So you don't share the vulnerability. And so how can anybody relate if you've overcome it? So how did you overcome it? Well, I felt my feelings. Well, what does that even mean? There's a way to feel your feelings, because
Yeah.
don't just tell somebody, oh, feel your feelings or sit with the emotion. There's a way to do it. And that
Yeah.
way is unique to everybody. So if somebody is looking and saying this has to be perfect or that has to be perfect, it's their lens of how they're judging themselves too. So, I mean, we can, of course, this is a topic that we can dive into so much deeper as well. Like, my coaching style is very unique. It's not asking tough questions or interest. I mean, yeah, I feel like I do the coaching thing a little differently. I realize that the best way that I can, and I don't even like to use the word help, guide someone into really truly becoming themselves, is to be in relationship with them.
Yeah.
And that's what created the Laziena experience. And that's something, Tasiyah always says, you can say it.
Being in relationship with my mom is a life-changing experience, guys.
Yeah.
As coming from a first-hand experience person
Yeah.
on both sides of the world. But it is a life-changing experience because the way that you do your coaching is you go for the heart. You go for the compassion to connect, because really, like, I think a lot of people when they do, well, I don't want to like sugarcoat it or like overcast everybody, but like with therapy, you're only going to find the person that matches you, and it's going to take time. But realistically, we don't want to be told what we're doing is wrong. We want to be validated in how we're feeling, and then how do we overcome it ourselves. So by going with the aspect of like really, really connecting with somebody, you're then able to get into the inner work, the shadow work, whatever is the core need that needs to be repaired.
Yeah. So that I pick up on that is that, that's kind of why I decided to put that message in the group, that I wanted to do coaching exchange, because I also feel that we all have something that is valuable to each other.
Yep.
And we
Yeah.
don't meet people by chance. It's all destiny. When it comes to understanding how a person works, not every one size is going to fit all. All have, we can have the same, two people can be kidnapped, or I don't even want to say
Two
that.
people can be in the same situation but
Mhm.
experience two separately different things.
Right.
And like I like think about like my brother and my sister, they're twins. They experienced the same childhood, but their experience was two separate
Yeah.
emotions.
Yeah. So that's why I was like, the best thing that I can do is to teach by being in relationship, because I want to know, if nobody's ever met you, and I mean, I met you, and by meeting you, we now know what your emotional needs are. We know what you feel safe, what makes you feel safe, what makes you feel connection, what kind of connection you like, how you behave, how you sabotage relationships, and how you look for love, how you look for connection. We wouldn't, I feel like that is something that you can't really just coach. It has to be something that you
You have to
explore.
experience it.
Yeah, and so it's an exploration that we both get to have. You get to see me, I get to see you, and then we get to co-create and we get to choose consciously to evolve together and expand together and, just be
Yeah.
really deeply rooted in connection. Like I am safe in our relationship. That's one of the things like I feel like I could talk about now too. It's like it took us a while. Not it didn't take us a while. We connected really well, right? But there
Yeah.
were sometimes we don't get along. Sometimes I'm mad at you, sometimes you're mad at me. I'm not to the degree of anything like that, but I feel safe in a relationship because if you're annoyed with me, it's not like you hate me forever, you never want to talk to me again. You're just annoyed at something. And it's something that we can talk about, get clarity on, and it doesn't have to come back again because we've truly
Yeah.
learned how to repair. I know what you need. Similar to me, accountability, you like the accountability language. I love the
Yeah.
accountability language because I speak it, like, and
Yeah.
so when other people aren't taking accountability, that's how it shows up for us. Like we're like, but but because we speak accountability language, I know that you need acknowledgement and you also need to I need to own how I showed up for you and how I could do it differently, and it's vice
Yeah.
versa. So, I feel like we couldn't have that experience if we weren't in connection and we didn't create that emotional safety.
Yeah. And it took us, like, I want to say we clicked fairly fast, but
Hmm.
I think like firsthand, because I experienced your coaching firsthand, right? There was a lot of curiosity and like self-reflection. Like you never asked me any, like, because I know some relationship coaches, they'd be like, they ask you these really, I think they they're deep, but they're like, I find them a bit intrusive and invading. So I
Hmm.
remember like one time I was on a networking call and I was sharing, it was a networking call for business, right? And I was sharing about, my part of the business, what I'm going through in my business right now and the struggles, because I thought that's what the call was for. And there was a relationship coach on the group, and I got to know later on that she only showed up because she wanted stories because she was writing a book. So she was going around the room asking everyone about their relationship status. And when people were saying they were single, she wanted to dive into that. And I can't remember, and I don't want to like share what other people said, but I'll share what when she asked me, I said, yeah, I'm single. But then she was like, why don't you wanna, are you pursuing anything right now? Do you wanna? And I was like, I'm at a point where I was going through a pretty hard phase in business that time. I was, like you said, I was really struggling with marketing and trying to figure that out. So for me, I'm a person who likes to go all in on something. And I feel like relationships are hard work. I don't want to say need hard work because they are hard work.
They have to be
And
nurtured,
I just
yeah.
yeah, and I didn't have the space to have that kind of connection with another person, like in a romantic relationship, because I have so much focus on the business right now. It's almost unfair to have this other person in my life and then kind of neglect them. I don't want anyone to feel like I'm doing that. So when I said something like that to her, she was like, oh, does that mean you've given up? And I was like, wait, what? And I don't even remember the rest of the call because I was so shocked about that question. And I remember I came on our next session and I told Laziena and her face was like, fuck, did she get it? Yeah, but it was it and I was like, I am so glad that, I did the whole relationship coaching with you and not with someone like that because I would have given up. Like, if a coach, because I felt very shamed even
Hmm.
that question. And it was like on a group call. I was like, okay, if you want to shame me one on one, that's fine. Don't shame me in a
In a
group
group
setting. Like
setting, didn't create any
that's
emotional safety.
and as an introvert, that's even worse. Like I think Tasiyah also would say that we don't want to like have that kind of embarrassment come out in a group setting of all places. So I was like, this is insane. But yeah, I think coming from that lens, I wanted to say, like, what I'm trying to say is I understand what you're saying because you really do create emotional safety and connection, and it's a safe space. And
Mm-hmm.
yes, we've had our disagreement, but I think we've never gotten to a point where, like, I'm like, I'm not going to talk to you. We've never had that thing ever.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure, like, there are moments of disconnection, but the one thing that I really know and feel safe in our connection is that I know even if we disagree, like we'll fight, but we never fight with each other. We fight against the thing. So like, yeah,
Yeah.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
like, it's like, okay, fine. Laziena is frustrated right now. I'm annoyed, something. And then we're like, let's regroup. Like, I'll
Yeah.
think about it from her perspective. She'll think about it from mine. And luckily, we do share the same repair language, right? So, like, emotional safety and, yeah,
Yeah.
accountability. That's what I
Accountability.
like. Need. And so that, like, we mix and match with it. And I think with this, I've never actually had I don't ever feel like I've ever had any moments of disconnection with her, but then I do see Tasiyah a lot less.
Yeah, I feel like I feel like the way I self-sabotage disconnection is like I physically lack presence, and like I feel like the thing I need to work on is like my communication as far as like texting wise, because
Mm-hmm.
I'm such an in-person communicator, so it's like I don't know, I feel like I slack more in the aspects of like there's friendships that I could develop much more on a deeper level, but I don't like text messaging. Like I prefer to call if we're gonna have connection
Yeah.
because I
Mm-hmm.
like to hear voice versus like sometimes with text like I can hear and I can understand tone, but like I just feel better over the phone.
Yeah.
Like just pick up a call and like we could be doing nothing and you could be doing your whatever work and I'm doing my own work. And like for me, quality time and like just being around each other is my connection and then like it opens the doors to deeper conversations. But like, yeah, I don't think we've ever been in a
We haven't.
disconnect. And
I
I
think it's
think
yeah, so yeah.
the way that we do disconnect too is that once we feel it, we tackle like immediately like what is the
Hmm.
disconnect about?
Mm-hmm.
Or it's like
Yeah.
we give the obvious spaces, like, okay, obviously there's a disconnect. We'll touch back up on this later. But most
Yeah.
of the time we try to do it as soon as possible.
Yeah.
Like I'm somebody that if I am in a disconnect with somebody, I can't go about my entire day.
Mm-mm.
Like I have to solve this right
Yeah.
now in here because like I feel like it's like unintentional hurt and unintentional pain for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
And the more that we can heal it, the faster we can heal it. It's like it's not about being faster, it's about also the other person being heard and
Mm-hmm.
felt and seen in that moment too.
And I
Is that
appreciate,
being perfectionist about being
yeah, like,
in
yeah, because we
connection?
want to, yeah, I think so. Yes, I must do this relationship perfectly perfect or they won't like me. But that's accepting that we're not always going to show up for each other all the time. It doesn't mean that we're not that we want that that's our intention. It's just how it
Yeah.
is. Like you and I can be on a call and I'm similar to see I'm very in person, like if like face to face. And
Yeah.
in text messages, I'm just like responding really quickly. And some people need that like softness in a text message. And I'm just like,
Yeah.
I'm not worried about how you're going to receive this because you know me, but at the same time, I also
Yeah.
know that if I'm communicating, sometimes I like to do it in text because when I'm talking, I can sound very stern.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
sometimes it can come off very stern. And there's on the opposite side of that, I used to be like aggressive.
Yeah.
So I've changed it from aggressive to assertive, reassuring that and I've done this with you. I love you. I care about this relationship and I'm not mad at you. It's just this situation. So I
Mhm.
try to give
Yeah.
that reassurance because even the other night I was trying to pick up Asiane and she told me to meet her at a different location then like just right down the corner or whatever. But it's like 11 o'clock at night and I'm driving and I'm like, I don't really, I'm looking at the GPS. I don't know where she is, where I am. And I'm like literally in the middle of the street. People are behind me. And I'm like telling like, and she's like, you passed me. I'm like, come, like, I don't know what to do. And she's like, you sound mad. I'm like, I promise you, I'm not mad at you. It is like when you are driving, you'll understand. It gets very confusing. And I'm the type of person, if you start talking or there's too many things going on at the same time, I can't focus. So I'm gonna get a little bit disconnected from myself, or even in that, I'm present. Like am flustered, I am overstimulated right now, and so I'm gonna be responding from that space. Just don't take it personally. And if you do take it personally, give me some time and we'll be able to talk about that, you know? So it's like on the opposite side, I want to do relationship perfect, but knowing that it comes with being imperfect.
Yeah. Yeah,
So
that's true.
kind of it.
So do we have I mean, I don't know, you can go around, but we have any tips to share with our audience on how to overcome perfectionism and the need to feel good enough? We can all like chime in. So whoever wants to go first, go ahead.
Yeah, I'll go first. I think for me, when it comes to perfectionism, it is linked to our not good enough. And that not good enough can stem from, maybe you had a report card and you showed it to your family member and they expected you to have A's. And that moment meant that oh, we always have to be perfect. That moment meant that love had to be earned. It had to show up in productivity, whatever that is. It's not a bad thing to look at. And once you look at it, once the awareness comes in, you'll notice all the moments when you're putting yourself under so much pressure to be perfect. And, just go there. Face it. Just face it. And if you need tips on, like, if you need somebody to help you guide you through how to do it, I'm right here. My goal is to be reachable. Yeah, that's what I have.
I think what I struggled with overcoming perfectionism that I had to learn was going back to the memories of what it reminds me of. Because oftentimes it was like, okay, I'm feeling this like anxiety. I'm feeling like, okay, this intensity of I need to do it perfect. But I think in the moment, like a few years ago, I would get stuck in like, okay, well, I don't know what this is reminding me of, but right now I'm stressed. And I think what really, really helped was me taking a moment, pausing, grounding myself, and then going back to reflect on what this reminds me of. Because the more that I reflected on how my perfectionism was sparking and what triggered the perfectionism, the easier it became for me to recognize when it was kicking in. And you have to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah,
Lots of grace and
that's true.
compassion.
So for me, it was I think the lesson I needed to learn was to not tie my work to like being a perfectionist because that's very much what I did. What Laziena was talking about, the report cards resonated now because I literally went back and like looked at that little girl and I was like, she just grew up thinking that that's what she needed to do to earn love. So I had to like, I mean, and when I worked with her, I realized that she would tell me so many times, like, you're lovable. You know that, right? If you're lovable. And it had nothing to do with me completing her homework or whatever other thing she made me do it. It was not like she would never be like, oh, you did it, great, gold star. Like she would never say anything like that. She would always just remind me as a message, which then I started saying to myself. And I was like, I don't have to perform to be loved. Like I am worthy of it without the performance and whatever. As a human being, I am worthy and deserving of love, as is everyone else. But I think the one thing that I really learned from being like, becoming an entrepreneur and also a bit from Lazina's style because she was more flexible than I was. And we spent so much time together that her flexibility like rubbed off on me a little was I was like, okay, you know what? I need to adopt that 80-20% rule. Now I'm just like, okay, you know what? Get things done, but it doesn't need to be 100% perfect. Like 75, 80 is what I aim for, and then I just move through because I feel like I'll never finish the task otherwise. And even this is funny. I don't think I shared this with Lazina, but part of the reason this podcast is, actually happening, of course, with the Tasiyah's help with getting out the videos, is it was just a very fluke idea, right? Like we talked about, we always have such good conversations, and we should just make a podcast like Laziena had shared on one of the episodes. And I was like, yeah, let's do it. And then I was like, okay, so Tasiyah and I are a bit more structured just to give, context.
Yeah.
So we had talked about this and this year, and I was like, oh, you know what? We needed to like look at an intro and an outro and like a structure. And like, I think they're both laughing because I actually made a whole structured document for our podcast, which Laziena liked, thank God, because I thought she was going to look at it and be like, girl, I'm throwing this out the window.
No, we complement each other very well.
I remember when you
Yeah, yeah.
guys first started talking about like launching the podcast, and like I remember the work in progress when it came to structuring everything, the intro, putting the design out there, getting the cover art ready. Like it's a beautiful process to watch you guys, and as your editor, like I literally get to watch you guys grow as we put out each episode. So it's like, yeah, as an editor, I'm putting out content, but you guys are the content. Like you got your guys' wisdom, your words, like this is all stuff that my generation needs to hear, but also like it's going to help anybody who comes across it.
Mhm.
So,
We're really appreciative of that because that was our goal. But like without Tasiyah's help, and she really puts her heart and soul into getting these episodes out. Like back to what I was saying, I was discussing with her, and she's like, "Oh, I wanted an intro and outro," and I was like, "I wanted that too." But I remember when I talked to Laziena, she was like, "Listen, I don't know how to do any of that. Let's just record and put it out." And I was like, "Okay, Amanda, this is a moment for me to be more flexible and freewheeling. Let's just go with Lazina's energy," and that's how we have completed so many episodes
Yeah.
up until now. Because I didn't wait for like if it was just me alone and this was just a solo Amanda's podcast. I honestly don't know when it would have ever aired because I would have been so, you know, meticulous with it. And then
Yeah.
I know if
mhm.
I had someone like Tasiyah as an editor, she would be so meticulous. And Lazina's like, listen, guys, we just need to go. We just need to get the content out. Like, just come on. So she's actually the momentum. Like Tasiyah and I are like a little more like, okay, let's do this and structure it a little bit. But I think we all work really well together that way.
We
Yeah,
do.
absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I think meeting them helped rub off my perfectionism in some ways. So yeah, I'm
Yeah.
so grateful for that.
I'm glad because I can't live in perfectionism anymore. It's too much pressure and it triggers my not good enough, and I don't like to do that to myself. No
Yeah,
more self-abandonment.
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Well, I think I've covered all my thoughts on this. If you guys have any more before we close the curtain on our episode.
No, good. That
Okay,
was a
so
great
I think,
conversation.
yeah, it was good. And I hope people listening in, I hope you got some great tips from this. And if you enjoyed our conversation, please like this episode and share it with someone who would like our podcast and subscribe, guys. Come on,
Yeah.
hit that subscribe button. And we're going to leave our links so that, like Laziena said, if you ever needed to get in touch with any of us, we're going to leave that in the show notes. And the repair language quiz and my quiz around food is also going to be in the show notes. And yeah, until then, we're happy that Tasiyah joined us again on this episode and we got to talk about perfectionism because I know this was a topic she was also interested in. And yeah, it's nice to see her in front of the camera because she's generally always behind editing. So yeah, we look forward to having her on more episodes. Yeah, till then, guys, remember you are not broken, you are just becoming.
That's right.
And yeah, I will see you on the next one.
Yay.
Bye.